This belt of a fight between SLU and Winthrop University in the lower semifinals has been all up St. Louis University. We bring Command Attack back on here, and TJ, just give me your eloquent reaction to another very intriguing game from SLU and Winthrop.
Intriguing is definitely a word, not the one I would use. My face was a little disturbed during that game. I don't quite understand how we can give Varus free kills. Varus cannot solo kill that game either way with Olaf, and then just choose to fight Olaf for free and just get ran down. I don't know. It was really disappointing to see Winthrop again have a pretty substantial lead, and then just kind of make some decisions that don't really make sense.
Yeah, and then again, just forgetting or not paying enough respect to Darkwings, who I think has had a pretty solid series so far. Just walking into Orianna Shockwave at the Baron. Really, really disappointing, like you're saying, especially for a Winthrop team that we have higher hopes for. And honestly, SLU, great job. You guys are doing good. You guys are holding down the fort. You guys are making a couple mistakes. Aaron, we already know. We talked about it during the show, but we need to kind of lock it in a little bit for the bottom lane, especially because we have had so many questions for both of these teams about their bottom lanes, whether or not they were going to be able to hold up in high-pressure situations. And I don't think this is necessarily one where Aaron is like choking or anything, but Aaron and Skytech, I think, have been a little less respectful of enemy damage and not necessarily, I think, really wary of where they're positioning and kind of making sure that they're not walking into team fights, because there's been a lot of situations, not only in that game, but I think in game one, where we saw either Aaron or Skytech, even in previous series, just get caught out and not really have a big impact in team fights.
We saw a fun one on Midwave with Nico, and the Senna was almost hit by Nico E and Nautilus E or Q, and it's like, oh, okay, that was a
for free
step up. Yeah,
nice.
That was crazy. Sorry, Slayer.
Yeah, you guys, we talked about the top side. Like, Surdy had a great game, obviously, but Command Attack, how about this series from Darkwings? I feel like he's been the unsung hero for 2 games now with these control mages.
Well, honestly, the Tillium performance was a bit better, as an Orianna enthusiast myself.
I was going to say.
But, to give credit on the Orianna ball, it is really hard to see Darkstar Orianna ball in Baron Pit. So even though he did just get a 5-man ult, it's very hard to see, and realistically, that wasn't anything like crazy done by him. So he is solid on the control mages, right? Like, he's obviously an extremely good player. I look forward to seeing another control mage. I don't expect him to switch it up. Maybe we'll see an Azir or something. But yeah, he's been having a good performance overall.
Boom, Yone pocket sound. He just goes ahead and plays like a Yone or an Akali. It's game 3. I think if you are SLU and knowing how some of these players kind of like will operate, I don't think they will do it, but I think there's an outside chance we see them start to get a little, experiment a little bit in draft. We've already seen it a few times from SLU, I think, during this tournament. So wouldn't be surprised if we kind of get thrown a curveball here.
Well, game 3 has been was the big buff for both these teams at a point. We got a little bit of time before draft, so if we have time, I want to take a look. Just to remind the audience about the sweepstakes one more time in case you missed the pre-show. These 2 teams have both been in this position before in the lower bracket. So I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying anything's going to happen. I'm just providing the audience with the information that Winthrop quite literally was in this position a week ago, 2 weeks ago, not very far in the distant past is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. They also have just played a lot of extended series. I know after their St. Clair game, they came into the interview, I think they had Sword on, and Sword was talking about how they are not super affected by playing these super long series. It's mostly about like being able to align on, hey, this is what we need to do. I think TJ actually put it really, really well at the very beginning of the show of more of a reality check. And now that they are basically 5 games down, if we think about their Maryville series last week, they really need to dig deep and kind of find what's going to work for them. I think a lot of this is also just coming from the fact that how much Denethor has been neutralized. When we talk about this player, he individually, when we look at a lot of their games, especially during the Collegiate Championship and some of their stuff, some of their run in NECC, was the fact of whether or not we would be able to see him come out of laning phase with either a minor advantage, him walking into enemy jungle alongside Wokow to try to gather them a little bit of an advantage there, or coming into team fights and having a really profound impact there. And we haven't been able to see that throughout this series. Obviously, the first game on Jax, I think, has a little bit of a different role, and we haven't seen stuff like the Kennen like he brought out versus St. Clair, and I am interested to see what they and how they kind of attack this, or if they're going to stay with the same strategy that has been going on, because they have been able to generate leads so far. Just closing out games has not really been their forte today.
Well, they're going to be on the red side, so if you want to leave R5 for Winthrop's top laner, Denethor,
sure,
you're in a great position for it, but command attack, what do we need to see here from Winthrop, red side draft, for you to feel like they're in a comfortable position to extend this series?
Look, at the end of the day, Collegiate League of Legends is not about draft. I don't think there's
True.
a single, like, one thing that I could say or a collection of things. I think more importantly comes down to, like, how you are playing and what you are doing. And I think the level of play that's been displayed today has not been good enough to, let's say, win the entire tournament. Now, they can prove us wrong, and I hope they do prove us wrong. But they had to focus on winning today. And so I think that any changes that Artemis can help them make, any changes that the players kind of can dig deep for to make sure that they're minimizing all the small mistakes, the better. League truly is a game of inches. Like, it's about knowing how you can get this small advantage, etc. So not wasting flashes is a big thing, or not giving up a ward when we don't have to. All that kind of stuff adds up over time and can create some really significant advantage over the course of a game. So as stupid as it sounds, just fix all the small things.
Just play better is what
just
TJ
play
just said.
better. Yep.
Literally,
like
the old collegiate statement, just win.
Yep.
It's actually just that simple. Sorry, guys.
Well, winning starts with the draft, even if it isn't too much about the draft. So we'll see how much Winthrop can get themselves going here on that red side like we talked about. And St. Louis University, TJ, I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record from last draft. Why change up these bans with how these games have been going?
I don't think there was any character that was too crazy. Maybe a Varus ban if you don't intend to first pick it instead of Jinx, but I don't see why you'd add that wild card in.
Yeah, especially with just how strong Varus has been, and for the side of SLU, they've really relied on this champion in a lot of their games. It is Aaron's most played alongside the Senna, so they're actually 5-5, including our last two games of the series. So we'll have to see. Winthrop now, again, they had side slick this time, so going for red. I'm interested to see what they get with the R5 here. I think this is a really big kind of moment, not obviously for the fact that it is potentially the last game of the series, but this is an intentional choice. Whether or not they actually are able to utilize it, we've already seen some pretty interesting drafts here on this series, so kind of looking forward to what they get. And it's now SLU adding the Lucian instead of the Jinx, I think, is a really big turn here as to what they want to try to go for from the bottom lane perspective.
It's the same bans they threw last time they were on blue side. They did ban that Lucian away in game number 1. So it's also, the big catalyst to the bottom lane of Lucian Nami that mobility and Chookies have leaned on so often in this series. No Varus, though, here for Aaron, even though it was up. Command attack, they're going to lean towards that Jinx, that classic hyperscaling AD carry of League of Legends.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a choice. I think Varus scales extremely well, too.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why we wouldn't just take the Varus here. Jinx is obviously an extremely strong character, but
Exactly.
I don't see why we give that away. Maybe they say, oh, well, Callista's banned, so we get to have a freer lane, I guess.
Also, Ashe is just, again, making it through the draft phase, and I would have thought that maybe for someone like Winthrop, who definitely loved to index towards double ranged, maybe we could have seen that, but instead just going ahead and taking the Nautilus, I think something that they want to try to take away from Jinx. We'll see what Skytech is going to go for, whether that is the engage. Like we said in the last game, maybe Braum starts to show up here, especially for the bot lane matchup would have been great. It'd be a great Braum angle. Orianna here, instead picking up the Vi. So Winthrop, I think, something to think about as we get into the second phase of draft with the bans.
I mean, I think Vi Orianna is such a free mid-jungle duo, and the way Winnie and Darkwings have been playing, that's already scary to me.
It's better than their Nocturne Ori that we saw. So
yeah,
I'm hoping we get a little bit better than that.
Sure, but we're already on a team fight comp. Obviously, we picked Jinx Ori,
Yeah.
so I don't understand why we wouldn't save jungle counter pick, get the free Braum. Like, don't know. That's a bit weird.
I already told you, TJ, that you said it first, man. Draft does not matter. Draft has we've already known this. We knew this coming into this series.
True. Just win.
Nico, though, another agency champion picked up here for Sword, and so far it's the same story, right? Same 3 champions. Right now we are still sitting with the only damage, the real damage being mobility so far. Command attack.
Yeah, I mean, really high impact ultimates, but they did not ban Olaf, so could just be another free Olaf pick here. I'm just so curious as to what's going on here.
Where's Braum? Why is there a Leona? Why is there a Leona? Are we just do we just believe SkyTech doesn't play Braum? Is that what I'm led to believe? I mean, he hasn't played at this tournament, but I refuse to believe that for SkyTech, a player at his level just doesn't play Braum. I think that's I think that would be a pretty big indictment for them. And now we get the Jax here coming out from Denethor. It's a threat onto Jinx, but like into Orianna.
Gragas on blue side here is so insane.
Yeah?
Okay? Like, it's so crazy.
Okay, so SkyTech plays Rel instead. Not great, but some way to be able to stop the Nico engage is okay. I think now, let's see it. Let's see it. Surdy, are you listening? Do you have the... Nope, we're just getting we're just getting blue 5 Vayne, of course. I told you, man. They're just going to do it. They're just going to play Vayne. All right.
Surdy just has an itch for it, right? I think he's like, I gotta sneak a Vayne game into these series. So he grabs the Vayne. The Malphite gonna get locked in.
Can I change my predictions? Can I change my predictions now?
Yeah, go for it, bro.
Malphite was picked, so I have to vote Winthrop wins the series now.
Okay. You said 3-1. No, you said 3-1. So we're feeling good.
Yeah.
This is the one game.
I said Slew would win, but now Winthrop doesn't win because they picked Malphite.
I know they get to win. Winthrop get to win their one game, and then we go back to game 4, and then Slew. They just magically make Malphite disappear from the game. There we go. Stop the draft.
I'll settle with that one.
All right. Well, Malphite here. So Winthrop, press the R button. Also, okay. So this is Wokow on the Jax. It should have known with a potential flex here of using this champion. But we're heading into game here. So TJ is gonna disappear back into the void. And we are going to have some great League of Legends. Slayer, it's game time for Winthrop. Obviously, Slew have been feeling it. They've been a little bit more in the flow state. We've been talking about them making a couple of mistakes. But now it is game 3 here. And Winthrop really need this win. They need to be able to have some kind of bounce back, some kind of momentum to try to help them. They've been having such great early games, but it has just not been clicking. They've been making a lot of critical errors.
Yeah, and I like the strategy. You said the old collegiate saying is just win. Well, it's a forward saying for me with Winthrop. Press R, just win. That's literally their comp here. So, can they execute this one? I mean, the Varus definitely brings a lot more value now that there isn't an Olaf on the Rift as well. If mobility gets in a similar spot with a similar lead, I would be willing to say that he has a lot better chances of being the main damage threat in this one. But he is rocking Halo Blade, so in a much squishier comp, leaning more towards that lethality and earlier power spike.
Yeah, of course. Why would I ever want to try to get into auto attack range of an Orianna or a Vi? Like, just stay out of range, stay at range, utilize something like an opportunity to make sure that you are getting so much damage. And again, another situation where we're just not getting lane swaps. Like, why bother? If you really wanted to, I think there's maybe a condition where you could try to put Vayne on the side lane. We have seen it a couple times. A lot of Vayne's power individually does come from the fact that she does have silver bolts, and that's going to just be something that helps her individually duel, especially when we get into side lane. But they just want to say, hey, we're just going to play standard lane. Something to expect coming into the series again. Both of these teams not really ones to opt for the lane swap, except for what we saw. They're definitely something we saw in game 2, but now here I'm a little worried as... I mean, Vayne is just going to be able to kind of push Denethor. We'll see how much attention they get. We haven't talked about it so far, but junglers on the same side of the map, Trickster or Wokow having the option to either go top lane and look for something, or just continue on his path and go bottom lane.
This is certainly the game for Surdy to once again try and back up his trash talk with this Vayne into the Malphite. I mean, This matchup is one where if Surdy gets an advantage, he can just wipe Denethor off the map. But Winnie is going to look for this mid-angle onto Sword here. Has the Vault Breaker, going to land the stun. Good use of that clone, though, from Sword. It'll just be a bit of damage now.
Yeah, it's going to put Dark Wings in a really nice position. Force out the pots from Sword. So a small advantage there, like you were saying. As it is just bottom laners trying to stack up that lethal tempo for Aaron. Great job there. And already, we're already seeing Wokow actually move in. Doesn't have bot prio, doesn't have mid prio. I think it's very dangerous, but obviously I think winning the 1v1, especially with red buff available and the lethal tempo. Oh, he's going to try and steal this.
Oh, he's just going to fight first. Winnie forced the flash. He
Whoa!
flashes after counter-strike, and now Winnie's going to try and use the red buff for an extra zoning. Going to Vault Break over the wall. That prio in bottom mid, not showing just yet, but the roams aren't coming just yet, so Wokow should be able to just steal away this red.
Yep. And also loses access to his Krug, so it also just has his entire bot side camps. Has first Scuttle as well. A lot of gold is going to be suddenly influenced, or kind of put into this Jax. And definitely very good as a champion that kind of wants to have a lot of resources here. Has an entire quadrant of the jungle that he still has available to him. And they might look for something top here with this wave crashing. Vayne's wave clear, infamously not the best. But if they can continue to, if they can try to continue to chunk Denethor down, maybe there's a play here and you try to force out a summoner or something like that. But I think it's mostly unlikely, especially with just how this matchup is going to go. It is a range versus melee. Denethor is going to try to poke out with the Arcane Comet as much as possible. But if Vayne wants to, and especially for someone like Sir, okay, that was almost a solo if he just doesn't flash there.
I mean, we talked about how well Darkwings has been playing in all facets of the game, especially game number 1. Sword certainly put in pressure to answer, and it's good to see him finally getting some prio in the 1v1.
This also happened in game 1. Remember when it was Talia versus LeBlanc? He just got like a really good trade from the side of Sword and forced him to take an early recall. So we'll see what else Darkwings is able to do. Has to flash. Also has to burn his teleport with the wave kind of pushing away. I don't think there's going to be too much of a timer here, but if there was, some kind of move, we do have dragons spawning here. Vi is heading towards the bottom side of the map and not taking a recall like Wokow is at this moment. So it does operate with a little bit of a timer for Salute to be able to get down vision. You already have Skytech in position. Can they actually try to contest for this Drake?
They have Chucky's roaming down as well. Wokow coming from base alongside mobility, but outside that Scuttle, not a lot of vision towards that side of the map. Mid laner's not just available with ultimates, so how much does Winthrop really want to index towards this dragon?
Seems like a lot. I mean, sure, like, Wokow's already down here. Winnie is finishing up his last couple camps on the bottom side here, so can play a little bit of a flexible position, whether or not after his Raptors he wants to walk into Dragon Pit, or if he wants to try to walk into mid, up to him. Nico will have the option to utilize their ultimate a little bit quicker and immediately is moving into River. So Winthrop will be at a small power advantage going into this Drake.
And now Skytech getting pushed out as well. Wokow's just going to bob the dragon, start it up, pull it on out of the pit here. So Slew are going to have to kind of swing back towards the top, so you can already see a couple of pings from Winthrop onto those grubs. I'm curious how many of these Winnie can get. He does have that topside prio.
I think if Winthrop ever contests for these grubs, I think Surdy would probably be like, all right, cool, man. Like, I would just be like, okay, cool. So I had prio from top lane, and it just doesn't mean anything. That's really chill. So kind of looking forward to see. I mean, Sword is just getting vision on this, so they took the dragon. He might not be able to get all 3. Probably just to fit. Oh, he didn't. Oh, the jungle pet doesn't finish the 1.
Flash after as well. Sword just dropping all the damage, and Sword does it on his own. First blood over to Winnie, and they're going to get 2 of the Void Grubs. Oh, it's another good start here for Winthrop.
I figured, hey, we're not probably going to see a team fight for a little bit. Maybe Darkwings could have just used the ultimate to burst out the minion wave, try to grab himself an advantage in terms of the wave, and then move over, protect his jungler, but small kind of mishap going over for the side of Slew, and Winthrop are able to get 2 grubs, grab themselves a Drake, and now potentially killing a Surdy.
Yep, has to spot the final hour, condemns back towards his own turret, has to flash, use the invis and the ghost, everything in the arsenal for Surdy just to survive the gank. Has Winnie here as well.
I was kind of wondering if Denethor was just going to flash Q with Arcane Comet. Surdy does get the level up, so is able to get a bunch of HP. Obviously, also has the fleet footwork to try to heal. They want to try to continue for this dive. I mean, putting pressure onto Slew's top lane. Good job from Surdy. That was mechanically really well played for him to escape. Good use of the invisibility, but all in all, it is going to be something that they can return to. Malphite ult is already almost halfway up, and they can try to look for this again onto Surdy, and I don't think he's going to get as lucky this time.
Yep, it's another flash check ultimate right early on with that unstoppable force, and like you mentioned, should come back to it. Gotta give Denethor some props. You know, was getting shoved in constantly in that range versus melee matchup. He is down 12 CS, but I feel like it could be a lot worse.
He is also just playing Malphite, so it actually just doesn't matter that he is down 12 CS. He will do the same thing regardless of how much gold he has. He will just be slightly tankier or a little squishier. It is like the slider basically. Like how much HP and how much armor do you have versus his team. First Loot do have some armor crush, so someone like Aaron is probably not going to be feeling too bad, but for a long time especially, I don't think Jinx is going to be dealing any meaningful damage. We'll see how much they're actually going to be able to get onto Sword.
Going to Sword, but he's going to turn it with the Pop Blossom. Darkwing's can't step up. They have Wokow here as well. Ignite on Sword's head. Darkwing's going to grab that kill, immediately traded back though by Winnie. Skytech has to flash out as well. Wokow's going to follow him, hop right on top, get one more empowered auto. And Winthrop positioning so well in this early game, come out on top on another skirmish.
A lot of good kills going over. They were able to kill Sword there for the side of St. Louis, but like you were saying, good trade over from Winthrop. Good movement coming out from our two supports to be there for the play. Ends up being that Winthrop are able to come up big with that one. And now Wokow on this Jax has a lot of gold, is starting to kind of pick up steam a little bit here through this jungle position. And could be something that, you know, starts to kind of tail the tape of the game. We still have to wait as Slew do have options when we get into later game team fights, and I am interested to see how Winthrop do close this out if they are able to win this, as it has obviously been a struggle for them in this series.
The obvious way to close it out is, like we talked about in draft, is if you can just kind of wombo some of these ultimates. This isn't a composition with a bunch of tanks that can kind of survive an unstoppable force, a Pop Blossom, a Chains of Corruption with mobility dropping the damage over. I kind of like it. I got to give some props to Winthrop with how simplistic of a teamfight game plan this is to execute. The question has been all series long, can they execute in those later stages?
Especially when we talk about for the side of St. Louis. I mean, okay, well, he just decided to stay under his turret. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
okay, final hour.
Denethor.
That's the first invis. They drop the aggro. There's the unstoppable force, though. Can he tumble in invis once more? Gets the Condembo. Wokow is just too strong at this point, and Surdy falls.
Okay. That's kind of one of the problems when you do play these ranged top lane matchups. If jungle is able to kind of assist, if, you know, the melee matchup doesn't go as well, it's stuff like this where it just kind of doesn't matter that you're playing Vayne. Again, will have increased utility as the game goes on thanks to just having access to silver bolts, but Winthrop are punishing. This is something that we've been talking about throughout the series. Their early games have been pretty decent. They've been able to garner early leads. It's just when we get into mid-game, some of their individual positioning errors and some of their teamfight execution has not quite been up to snuff here. And oh, Winnie should be fine. Oh, Winnie, no.
It's baited in with ease. Wokow right there. Surdy coming forward. Doesn't have the final hour. Has the ghost pop, but it's really nerfing his damage. That's a good Tangle Barb from Sword. Surdy.
Oh my God, Surdy.
Forward, though, looking for the kill onto Wokow. And he'll be able to dash away. Another kill for Winthrop and another pretty good skirmish.
The crossbow bolts do not go right through the counter strike right there. So Wokow ends up living with just barely enough HP. That's ghost out from Surdy.
What
Hook
a
lands.
line. Cancels the crash down into the Chains of Corruption. There's the Metal Storm, but Skytech is dead. Every lane for Winthrop looking good in this early game when they needed it most.
Surdy's getting a little bit of gold in mid lane. They decided to swap this over thanks to Surdy just being mid lane. We also have the Herald spawning. We have Dragon up and available for both teams. Or sorry, we have the Grubs here. Interested to see how much Slew can grab. If they can grab 4, then obviously they start to spawn in those Void Mites. And they have had a lot of time with a lot of these turrets, so it would be interesting to see. Instead, deciding going away from this objective. Don't think they just don't have the numbers. They also don't have a Nico ultimate, so it's so hard to play in this situation.
Not the worst thing, though, especially because earlier, that one Void Grub that lived on 1 HP could prove kind of pivotal. It is those newer Void Grubs, so 4 does still get you a Void Might, so not too bad at the end of the day. But you do give up Dragon Prio over to Wokow, who, with that Trinity Force done, I mean, he just shreds this thing all on his own.
Exactly. I want to see how much we can actually use these Void Grubs, because they have been more meaningful for SLU when it comes to ending out the game, just being able to just basically shred through a turret very, very easily, even with fortification early on. However, Surdy can get a lot of value. If he's going to be sitting on a side lane for the rest of this game, that is something that they can try to look for. Oh, Surdy gets caught.
Oh my god, Sword. Not having enough damage, though. Has to force the flash out of Surdy again. It's a rough go of it for Surdy's Vayne in this game number 3.
You know, truth be told, I think Surdy is still playing this pretty mechanically well. Like, he is, so far, some of the blunders he's made, he is just outplaying in those situations, and he is making it so, okay, yes, I put myself in a tough spot. I probably shouldn't be here, but a player of his caliber that we've seen time and time again, I think, show up on a big stage, he is, you know, kind of outplaying in a situation where probably shouldn't be. So it's like, props to him for doing it. Probably shouldn't be doing it in the first place, but I think he looks good while he's kind of getting across.
Yeah, it's like, great job escaping the box, but you also put yourself in the box.
Yep,
so,
for sure.
Well, bit of a box here for mobility. Good cleanse on the slow there from Skytech. The Jinx corruption on to Aaron as well. Made sure the Jinx couldn't step up. Those early lethality items as well, giving mobility a lot of agency into that scaling Jinx.
I love how much also, I know this is slowly starting to turn into a Surdy Glaze session, but like, he has just been really proactive about moving to other lanes first, recognizing that probably isn't going to be super useful just constantly trying to match up against Denethor. So moving into bottom lane, he is spotted thanks to Winthrop's wards, but it doesn't mean that they don't get immediately crashed on under that wave. Then moves mid to try to catch this, so he's able to access the rest of the map. Darkwings doesn't have teleport, but I assume after he has this summoner spell, that is something that he's going to be kind of utilizing. Surdy, very dangerous to be playing there. If Chookies doesn't have ultimate, but if that is up and available, Surdy is probably just going to be dying there. And with Tangle Barbs not landing, you're basically asking for Winthrop to send multiple members mid and try to catch this guy out on Vi. Goodbye, mobility.
Yep, early flash sets up the easy crash down in the cease and desist. They give the shutdown over to Aaron as well. But Surdy, on the other side, gets picked off as well. So it's a trade of marksman at the end of the day. And look at Winthrop barreling down mid with Herald.
How much can they get from this? I mean, Denethor is on top side, so probably is going to get a meaningful amount of damage onto top tier 1. Without a minion wave, though, Winthrop cannot grab this mid tier 1. And we have Dragon spawning in 2.5 minutes. I just don't know why mobility is flashing in that situation. We know that this fight is coming up. We can just wait. You're probably dead in a lot of cases. Vi has ultimate. There's just no reason to use it in that situation. So now you're going to be down flash going into this this next objective. If you are going to be looking for a team fight, you're praying that Vi doesn't just walk on top of you, that Skytech doesn't find an engage, and you're making it that much tougher for Winthrop, who still have a lead. It's 2,000, almost 1,500 at this point, but it's why give an edge at that point, right? Okay, fighting it on Surdy.
So here's an edge back towards Surdy, and it's just getting easier and easier in this 2v1. Press R for Denethor. Wokow cleans up. Rinse and repeat for Winthrop.
So now Winthrop get the mid-tier 1. They're also going to be able to grab mid-tier 1 and potentially mid-tier 2 here. Wokow should be able to escape. That's a lot of gold influx, but they need to be able to spend it. And if they really want, Winthrop can stay a little bit later onto the map thanks to there just being the Hextech Drakes. It means that you're not it's much more lenient to stay out and say, okay, we can stay for an extra 10 seconds out on the map, maybe push another wave so that then we can take the Hextech portals, get back onto the map a little bit faster and look for something there. SLU just trying to take any kind of top camps that they want, but they will be lacking some vision, and for the side of SLU, they also have some vision down on the bottom side, but I expect for this vision ward, this control ward that's sitting in the blue buff, to be cleared out before this dragon does spawn.
Still a minute on the dragon. SLU think they might have a play. They saw Denethor use the Hex Gates to get over here. They have 3 members top. Denethor certainly is tanky, but the Shockwave, the Vi damage, shredding the armor should be enough. The stun with the lance set up well by Skytech. Darkwings gets himself a kill quietly, 2-0 on this Orianna.
Okay, so they just don't care about this dragon. They're saying, okay, let's put all of our eggs into this top side, break down more structures, and that's something we have just seen across the series as a whole. Not necessarily putting too much focus into the objectives and saying, we are going to come into 3rd Drake and 4th Drake with a gold advantage and try to leverage our items and experience versus you. Whereas Winthrop kind of saying, okay, let's try to stack as early as possible, force Salute to try to fight us on maybe an awkward timing or an uneven fight. And so far it's been working for Salute. This time around, teleport's coming in. Can they get this turret? Okay, so the TP now isn't available for...
Sword isn't here. And now they're going to go in. They're going for mobility. Doesn't have those summoners. Winnie, though, is alone.
Sword,
That was a great
sword!
depth charge, and Sword comes in. Double Pop Blossom into the Unstoppable Force. The Wombo combo picks off Surdy, and now Wokow is unlocked and running wild. Kills off Aaron. Skytech has to flee for the hills. Can the Blast go get him out? It can. But Winthrop turned the fight on its head.
I just don't know if that fight is necessary for Slew. I mean, yes, you're looking for it. You do end up canceling the TP, so there's a timer. But why are we fighting around Hextech Portal? It's basically just allowing Sword to get right into the back line. And Darkwings didn't have ult for a majority of that fight. So some small errors coming out from both teams here. Denethor getting caught out beforehand. Sword teleporting onto that turret, gets punished. But it just doesn't matter now. Winthrop, they get all of those kills. They're going to grab themselves the dragon. And that small timer we were talking about for St. Louis is going to turn into soul point here for the Eagles. We need to see how they're going to be able to turn this around for the side of Slew, as Surdy getting close to level 11. He's now finished his first item. Maybe it's going to be able to make a difference. I'm starting to... We have doubts. Every single time we've seen Surdy pick up this Vayne, it's been in spots that maybe it's not the best in. It definitely feels more so that he kind of just wants to get more and more reps on this champion. Does give them an out as we get later into the game, but just makes it so much difficult for them to actually contest early on.
I can hear the great command attack in my brain, wishing that this had been an Olaf from Surdy to try and close out the series. But that is not the reality we, in fact, live in. And speaking of that Soul Ulk, how much do you love that this is a Hextech Soul, potentially up at about 23 minutes for Winthrop?
I mean, look, Souls are usually very impactful. Hextech Soul is only going to make it much more possible for them to actually chase Slew. That slow, I think, is going to be very, very influential. And obviously, Hextech Soul is just naturally very, very strong as is. So adding a slow to help you chase your opponents out from fights, only going to make it that much worse for Slew. And like you said, 4 minutes now before we potentially, 3.5, sorry, before we see this dragon. I want to see Slew push out their waves and collapse inwards towards objectives. We obviously have been putting a lot of focus on someone like Surdy on this Vayne, but 0 and 4, he's going to have a lot more of a reduced effectiveness coming into team fights. He's also going for that huge movement speed build where you have Trinity Force, you have Stormrazor, and need to be very careful. Aaron, no flash, no cleanse. I hope when you see a melee minion running away from you, you know that that's not going to be a real one. And if they can try to go in from side lanes into objectives, maybe they can set themselves up where, okay, we don't have to really pay attention to the objective. They have to deal with a wave crashing on their inhibitor, but it just becomes so difficult. I mean, Orianna definitely has something where she can maybe do a little bit more damage. She's able to finish the second item. It's going to be pretty huge for Slew and being able to turn a fight. It's just a matter of if and when for the side of St. Louis.
Speaking, though, on Sword, the drastic difference, I'm curious what your thoughts are. You know, another Nico game. We were last game. Not enough damage alongside mobility. With the lead Sword's guy, he's up to those 2 items with that Zhonya's. Is this a point where that AP threat of the Nico has enough damage to be a decider in these fights compared to last game?
She has a lot of mobility, being able to use the Rocket Belt, being able to have the Flash available, as well as the Zhonya's, I think, like you were just noting, is such a big spike, not only in terms of how much AP now Zhonya gives thanks to some of the item reworks, but also the fact that, I mean, you just have insane amounts of survivability. You have someone that can you can use the Pop Blossom, and if they do turn onto you as the Nico, use the Zhonya's, wait for the rest of your team to show up. You also have Wokow who can deal damage. You buy time for mobility. Denethor, obviously, this ultimate is going to be very, very big and influential as to whether or not they land this. Good ward coming out from Winthrop to be able to spot this. They know that they have some idea that they're in the brush here.
They look to try and chain those
TP
ultimates.
coming out from Nico.
Yep, it's a flank here for SkyTech. They're going on mobility, uses the cleanse and flash at first. Wokow trying to jump on Darkwings, has to go back, and they have Chookies pinned. There's the crash, and they're trying to hold Wokow in place, but SkyTech and Winnie already dead. It's Surdy trying to go wild with the final hour. Does get away from the Pop Blossom, but Aaron and Darkwings just can't get close enough. Surdy chunking these health bars low, but no kills traded back except Chookies for St. Louis.
Wokow is low. If they grab this mid-tier one, they could try to use the Excited to move it into Baron. I know Winnie is dead, so they obviously would not be trying to finish this objective. But you could try to use it to try to make some kind of advantage happen. You could try to force out on some of the summoner spells, put Winthrop in an awkward position. Surdy.
Oh, he's
no
monolith, and
flash.
he eats a piercing arrow from mobility. What a find there for Wokow to shut down the momentum.
50 seconds before the Drake spawns as well. That could be the soul. Going over to Winthrop now. 3,000 gold. They're going to get their resets in. Finish some of these items. He will not be here in time. He will just barely be able to skate in thanks to having the Hextech souls. But for Winthrop, that was a massive... I mean, this is being able to set yourselves up. Now you can push through mid. You can get into river. Slew. Got to be able to kind of lock it in a little bit. We were worried whether or not this was going to be a clean sweep. But Winthrop, so far, 24 minutes into this game, have a commanding lead. They put themselves in really good position here. They've been able to punish St. Louis and for some of their tendencies in this one.
And they have all their ults available for that diabolical ult chain. You've seen some success already, like you talked about so well, Alk. They have that river control. Winnie and SkyTech looking, but look at Sword on this flank ward. SkyTech doesn't spot him just yet. Sword has such an angle on everybody. He's a goddamn control ward, but he's going for the Pop Blossom, and he grabs 3 when he's already dead. They don't get to Aaron. Sword has to go golden. There's the unstoppable force. Surdy's down next, and here come the Golden Eagles, just reeling down mid lane. They're not looking to get swept. They're not out of this series just yet, Alk.
It's going to be the soul going over. Mobility does not land the piercing arrow, but that would have just been the cherry on top for them. They'll grab the dragon. They have access to the Baron as well. Surdy is able to condemn. He saves them from the Nico ultimate, but he gets caught up. He gets utilized. I mean, all the crowd control just lands on top of him, and he just goes down. Aaron flashes forward to try to get a kill, but at that point now, you kind of condemned yourself entirely for this roster. Winthrop, for the first time in the series, seem like they're going to be able to close out a game here versus St. Louis in what has been a pretty one-sided series so far.
And how about the performance here from Sword on this bounce back? I mean, he is finding all of these angles alongside Denethor for these key ultimates, and that was the entire crux, the entire shebang of this Winthrop draft. Like you talked about, it's been working out so well so far, but the soul is very important. The gold lead isn't as big as you'd like it to be. Do you feel like there's still an angle for Slew to find something, or are we looking forward to Game 4?
This is what Game 1 probably should have looked like. You know, maybe not in terms of the KD spread that we see at the top of the screen, but like, Surdy is absolutely homeless this time. This time it's not Twisted Fate, it's Vayne. Again, still has the ability to actually have impact in team fights, but like, we're just going to have to see this over and over again. Winnie is dead. They can go to Baron now. This is more along the lines of what we should have seen from Winthrop in Game 1, but unfortunately they fell short there. This time around, they've now had 2 games. There's no excuses. It's like, okay, the first game you can say, maybe we had just woken up. You know, maybe we're kind of getting a little bit groggy. It's our first game of the day. Second game, they had a really tough time dealing with the Olaf. Third game, please, you have to punish these blind Vayne picks that are coming out from Slew. There have been so many blind top laners chosen for St. Louis, and finally they were able to grab it. Now they get themselves a Gen G Baron buff. SkyTech's just going to have to try to run away. And Winthrop, you have to feel, are going to be able to close this one out.
Surdy wants to fight, though. Final hour and goes pop, but, I mean, where does support just go? Wokow goes unstoppable. Surdy, one more invis, but a hop forward. Gets a double over to Wokow. Darkwings and Aaron just aren't close enough, and it feels like Slew are falling flat, and Winthrop are looking for the KO blow. It's Sword once again finding the pick. He was a long sword in games 1 and 2. He just leveled up to Excalibur, and he's going to set Winthrop up for a game number 4 behind the power of Wokow. Good shockwave back over. They do find him, but it's just a little bit of a fleeting hope for SLU.
Yeah, they're pushing down mid. They've also got this bottom wave that they can go to after this mid wave goes down. Instead, trying to play on 3 lanes here. So instead, just leaving Denethor all by his lonesome. They're going to try to grab this top tier 2. But this game is all but over. We're waiting for that Nexus to go down. Surdy is 0-7 on this Vayne. It was a nice attempt.
Whoa.
Skytech presses the W to try to hit TJ in the void.
Winnie should be able to corral Sword for now. And finally, Sword will fall. So they do pick up that shutdown on the reset timer, but not much for them to really find on the map with it.
Yep. Shutdowns going over, I think, is really important. Also, losing access to that Baron. You still have a minute and a half, so you could still try to play on the next like wave and a half or maybe, but yeah, just seems like instead Sword just going to try to give that up, not use any of his summoner spells, good respect over to his opponents. 2.5 minutes before this Elder, the great equalizer. It is the only way I see SLU being able to get back into this. They get a team fight when he's able to steal away the Elder, and then by some grace of God, by grace of Baron Nashor himself, they're able to find a team fight. Because not only do they need the Elder, they also need for Winthrop to not land all of this crowd control onto the carry members. Because that still is going to be such a huge factor for Winthrop.
Yeah, and what front line can really brunt it? It's Skytech. At this point, Winnie also is just in a rough spot. I mean, he's got a little bit of tankiness, a tiny bit towards the end of his health bar, but basically 4 members, you could even argue Skytech, get hit by this ult combo, they're dead.
Yep. The Locket is starting to come back, so for Skytech, they can block a little bit of that damage. Winnie also picking up the Elixir of Iron here, a small bit of just added HP as well as innate tankiness thanks to having some tenacity, larger champion size. SLU now going to try to protect their bottom lane inhibitor. It's a minute and a half before this Drake, so right now Winthrop should be focused on pushing these waves in as far in as possible, and then getting good vision, also denying that from SLU so that to walk into Fog of War and always be worried about, in this brush, is there a Jax waiting for me? Is there a big Nautilus ready to hook me when he uses ultimate? Is there Denethor setting up with an ultimate, potentially?
Surdy continues to just bait out ultimates, but yeah, that's the Hextech Drake doing his work with those piercing arrows. 3rd of Surdy's HP. Winnie looking for the last stand fight here. They're going to go
nice
right
flash.
on top mobility. There's a big shockwave. They get the flash out of mobility, but he gets the safety. Surdy's
oh my God,
Surdy
Surdy
pops him in an instant. The Pop Blossom on the front line to hold down the rest of SLU. SLU tried it. They went for the last-ditch effort, but it falls flat. Good flash there away from Aaron to get away from the unstoppable force. Wokow, though, looking to push forward, jumps in. Locked up. Darkwings finds that kill. SLU are standing tall with their carries, but it's mobility over the wall to go legendary with the piercing arrow. Sword eats a slow. Is going to die to Aaron, who does get the reset. So these late-game scalers for St. Louis starting to hurt.
I mean, Surdy, my man, like, I saw the flash forward, he instantly died. I'm like, okay, man, we're trying. We're definitely doing stuff. Winnie and Darkwings there, setting up beautifully for a Shockwave combo. I think the first one that we've seen all game. Finally able to get that down as a combo, and Aaron gets those resets. He's hit the Infinity Edge spike. That was the big spike for them for the side of SLU, so we'll see how much more they're able to grab. Wokow being down, Winnie being down means that the Elder's not a real objective. And if you are SLU, you have to be afraid of starting this. We saw it at Worlds 2022. You do not want to have to try to smite steal versus Avaris.
Well, I mean, they might not even get a chance because Surdy gets chunked by one piercing arrow. There's another one on a Skytech who has to use the Locket. Wakow's back with the Hextech Gates, and they have Darkwings pinned. Mobility's damage with this Hextech Drake is absolutely stupid. And Sword finds another great flank onto Surdy. There was a bit of a window. The door has now been slammed shut by Winthrop, who can now barrage down mid to force a game 3.
There it is. They've got the waves. They're ready to try to go for this. It's Winnie, it's Aaron, and it's Skytech. These 3. Winnie coming in for this roster. Aaron and Skytech, 2 players that have been on the roster on the SLU team for a little bit. Don't know if they'll be able to make the defense here.
Trying to hold the Nexus turret strong. Winnie goes in. Aaron doing a ton of
That's
damage, though. He's going to get excited. Winnie isn't dead just yet. Those rockets really starting to chunk out Winthrop. Aaron trying to be the unsung hero. They'll lose a second inhibitor, but It does stop Winthrop from ending the game just now.
I mean, it stops them for maybe like another minute, but there's an Elder coming in. There's the Baron spawning in 8. Aaron has to try to, like, the entirety of the St. Louis roster need to be able to try to find something. Instead, they're going to trade the Elder for this Baron. I think that is a horrible trade. Usually taking the Baron is pretty good, but Elder alongside a Hextech Drake, alongside how strong mobility is, I have a feeling he lands a single piercing arrow from full HP on Acerity and he just dies. Straight up.
Well, we're about to see it in action because the Baron's not done yet. And here comes Sword of Denethor. You thought the arrow was going to hurt? Watch this ult combination. Unstoppable Force, Pop Blossom. It's pure beauty from Winthrop in game number 3. Their solo lane standing up strong. The Genji Baron buff will go over to Slew. But does Surdy even get out with it? They're chasing down this top side. The piercing arrow falls just a bit short. You got to think that would have executed Surdy. And it's 3 members of Slew that have the Baron. But what will it get them?
So now they're trying to find some kind of angle here. Darkwing's up in 30, Aaron up in 25. This bottom lane Nexus turret is super low. Denethor used TP to get back into this fight. He does not have ultimate quite back up and available. Skytech finds an engage, but no one's following it.
No one following at all. They just can't get close enough. Legendary goes mobility. Winnie forced out once more, and there's the Elder buff. Winthrop University looked dazed and out of the series, but they get back up and they're still fighting. No sweep for St. Louis University.
31-11 is that final game score. And it was a good look for Winthrop. I think a couple of moments where they may have overextended, and still some of the issues that we saw from the rest of the games in this series. But finally a win on the board. Gotta feel good. We talked about wanting to try to build momentum, trying to buy yourself back into the series. And now, look, it's not a clean sweep. We still have a lot of League of Legends to play here in this best of 5. But Slew definitely looks sloppy, and I think rightfully so punished for a lot of the draft that we saw coming into the series.
All just like the analogy we've been running with all show long. Title fights are not just 2 simple rounds. They are a gauntlet, and so are best of 5s. And Winthrop have got back to their corner. Artemis brushed off the fighter, hit him with a cup of water, gave him some encouraging words, and the boys got it done. But it is far from over just yet, folks. 2-1 lead for Slew. Winthrop playing for their CLOL championship lives. We're going to take another short break, hear from our sponsors once more. And on the other side, bring Command Attack back in here and see exactly what this fatal game number 4 draft looks like for the Golden